And we're off. Welcome. Bienvenidos, bienvenue, Happy New Year, and willkommen to the first episode of Sayonara Baseball in 2025. My name is Brandon Painbeiser, and I am proud to say for the 5th year together, joining me, the captain of our ship, Kazuki Akiba. Hi, Kazuki.
Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I think for all your intro, we need to add check now next into your hellos.
I think we have to add one Asian country because I've done mostly European. I've tried a South American. It did not fly. So we'll have to keep adding. But no, we have listeners and friends from all across the world. So every time they write into us or contact us, I try to incorporate them. And we had a guest from Madrid last year, so I had to include Spanish. So that was quite good. So like I said, this is our 5th year together. And this is going to be a special year. And I think the special, why this is a special year is pretty much resulting from the Hall of Fame class. Let's go through the Hall of Fame class real quick. The Frick Award winner is Tom Hamilton. We love Tom Hamilton in this podcast. So if you have heard my Kazuki and I talk about the Cleveland Guardians broadcasts are great for the radio. And that's Tom Hamilton. I mean, he is swinging a drive and you're running through a wall for that guy. Great broadcaster. Thomas Boswell is our Baseball Writers Association of America award winner for excellence. And then we have the 5 players that got in. The committee is the historical committee. Dick Allen and Dave Parker, who are both players who spent most of their time in teams in Pennsylvania. So Dick Allen was a Philadelphia Philly. Dave Parker was a Pirate. So that's exciting. And we have 3 players that, like, we're getting to the point now in these awards that we're seeing players that we've spent most of their career playing while we've watched baseball. So CC Sabathia, Guardians and Indians fame, Yankees, Brewers. Of note, Billy Wagner, who was the Astros' supreme closer and then moved on to the Mets. But the name that's going to stick with this podcast is Ichiro Suzuki of the Seattle Mariners, New York Yankees, Florida Miami Marlins. And I think that's it. Did I miss any?
No, and then he went back to the Mariners and
went back to the Mariners.
Right.
So Ichiro Suzuki will become the first Asian-born player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. For that statistic alone, for that fact alone, it's a momentous occasion. But to Kazuki and I, it's kind of the reason we're friends. Kazuki and I got along great when we met at work. But when you try to look at the additional interests you have in common, baseball, and when Kazuki found out I was from Seattle originally, the first question out of your mouth was, what do you think of Ichiro? And then you saw me play softball, and I think your answer was Ichiro is my favorite baseball player because I try to mimic his batting stance because it just was gentler and softer and easier for me to do. And, I led the team in singles for 3 years. So it works. I was not a home run hitter. I was a very low bat person on the batting order, but I could get on base and I batted like Ichiro. And I think it stymied most pitchers in the New York Media Softball League for a couple of years, for the 4 years that I played so far. So I think it's, like I said, it's the reason why you and I connected over baseball.
And you got the number 51 in our softball team jersey too.
No, so 51. So fun fact on this one, everyone. So 51 was actually taken by our friend Chris. You've heard Chris Smith, and he took him because he was a Bernie Williams fan. And if there's 151 that I enjoy sharing Ichiro's number with, it's Bernie Williams, because Bernie Williams is like probably one of the most preeminent prototypical center fielders of all time. Like, he was just simply very good and consistent at his job. Plus, he's an expert guitar player. But I wore 44. And the reason why I have 44, well, I think we got into this a few times, but I'll remind people again, is 44 was a favorite number of mine. But I really know many players who wore 44 in baseball. Come to learn.
Seattle Mariners center fielder is 44.
Mike Cameron, Julio Rodriguez. But before that, Willie McCovey, right field in San Francisco. And of course, I think was it Reggie Jackson or Ann Henrienne or both, or one or the other?
Reggie Jackson was definitely 44.
Reggie Jackson. So we had right fielders it was right field institution wearing 44. I'll have to check if Hank Aaron ever wore 44 in his career. But Mike Cameron, Julio Rodriguez, obviously Mariners fame. But to relate to, we played our softball on a tricky wall in right field in New York City on Riverside Park on 103rd Street. And to, wear 44 in right field for Willie McCovey felt very special. Obviously, 51 was in center and center and left with Chris, our friend Chris. So we had like numbers that really worked. I think our other friend who wore was a single digit number, or was a really high digit number. So it just worked. We had really good numbers for our jersey in the outfield. But for our first podcast of the year, we have to start. We have 4 topics today. We have the Japan series that concluded about a week ago. Why that was notable, what we observed from it. The second thing we're going to talk about is we have opening day in 2 days. First opening day game is Thursday afternoon. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we enjoy opening day and a couple traditions that we've researched and that I've been a part of, which are kind of fun, which I found out all the way, by the way, all the ones we listed are from the NL Central, just by chance, which is kind of nice. The next one is just a quick season outlook, things we're looking forward, teams, players looking forward to, because again, seasons and teams change. Teams and players change, sorry. And then the last thing is we're going to talk a little bit about this Ichiro, about the year ahead for this podcast and why I have dubbed it the year of Ichiro. And I think Kazuki was the one who came up with it, but when he said it, I was like, this kind of makes sense. It's our 5th year together. Ichiro is going to the Hall of Fame, and there's something very special about how those paths are intersecting as we go along. So let's get started. The Tokyo series, the Japan series. Last week, the Dodgers swept it. The highlights were Ohtani's first hit, the fact that the Dodgers started 2 Japanese-born pitchers, Yamamoto and Sasaki. Sasaki being a rookie. I say that in air quotes because he's not a rookie in baseball, but he's a rookie in Major League Baseball. And Shota Imanaga started for the Cubs. So we had at least 3 pitchers, which that's brand new to baseball. For Japanese, brand new to have 3 Japanese pitchers back pitch, and then let alone in Japan. So they were very excited to watch this. And then you had other Japanese players, Seiya Suzuki, namely for the Cubs. So this was a Japanese baseball game in Japan, but it was also a Japanese highlight reel. Like this was an honor to the Japanese, for the best players in baseball. I mean, we could do our Asian-born all-star team at this point, and we're going to hit a lot of players from Japan today, and it's incredible to have them all play in their home stadium. I mean, that meant a lot to you. I mean, I remember how excited you were when you texted me, like, it's Cubs Dodgers, and I know who's going to start. Like, you just knew it off the top, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's in Japan too. Who else? Right.
It's at the Tokyo Dome. Like, it just fits. And like I said, Ohtani got his first hit in game 1. New signee or returning signees for the Dodgers, Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernandez, kept doing. The Dodgers bullpen was phenomenal. Like, they were awesome. And the Cubs bullpen looked a little rough around the edges. That was a 4-1 win. And then game 2, Ohtani got a home run on review. It hit the fan or the wall or something out in right center. Tommy Edman hit the first home run of the season, which I thought was quite hysterical because he's diminutive and compared in stature to these players. He's pretty diminutive, but he's great. He's been great since he was the Cardinal. Sasaki had a lot of walks, and everyone was kind of speculating why. I'm like, I think is this his first game in Major League Baseball, and it's just got to get used to.
Yeah, the nerves probably.
A whole new set of pressure points, and the Cubs are good. Like, let's know that the Cubs may have lost both these, but the Cubs are a contender in the NL Central and have been for the past couple of seasons. He's facing talented players, and there's a lot of pressure, to like sweep the Japan series in front of a sold out crowd in your home country. Sure. But it's, there's not a real hole in the Cubs batting order, and he got a few times. He walked in a run. Dodger bullpen again was quite good. Cubs bullpen was better, but they also gave up 6 runs. So there's a lot more walks in game 2. There were 39 strikeouts in 2 games. That's what struck me. Before we move on to our open, any other thoughts on just the Japan series? I thought it was quite interesting just by how dominant the Dodgers just looked.
I mean, when you have 4 closers in your bullpen, like you had Tanner Scott closing, Kirby Yates, you didn't use Kopech, you had Trine in for both games. That's 4 elite closers right there.
That's at least, those are all all-stars, aren't they? All three. Is Scott an all-star or no?
Scott was. I don't think he was an all-star last year, but year before he probably was. But he's
Yates
probably going to be
Yates has
your
been up.
closer.
Yates has been close to, if not an all-star, and obviously Blake
Yeah.
Trinan with the A's has been an all-star. So that's, and then Kopesh, again, the renaissance of Michael Kopesh goes to the White Sox. If you heard my story, goes to the White Sox, get drafted, high flying, high fastball gun. He's gonna break the speed gun kind of pitcher, and then he just gets injured, has a real tough situation there, ends up with the Dodgers for pretty much a nothing burger of a deal. And I'm going to throw the heat again, but I'm not going to throw the heat for 5 innings, 2, 3 most, and it
Yeah.
works. And the other thing that I say is the Dodgers have found a way to take a bunch of players who were not good on other teams or suffering on other teams from hitters, and just Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez, who was bad, who's made the full circle, Teoscar Hernandez, who was good for the Mariners but better for the Dodgers, and they still have new players. They're still bringing other people to play. And Mookie Betts obviously is ill, so we hope he feels better. He was not playing,
Yeah.
but
Freddie Freeman wasn't even playing.
Freddie Freeman didn't play, so they just stuck in players and they played quite well. And on the Cubs side, this player Crow Armstrong, who plays, I think he's center field. Is that right?
Yeah,
Crow Armstrong.
that's why Bellinger got traded. Yep.
He's got a big shoes to fill, but he looked pretty. He was it's nice to have a steady force in center. Seiya Suzuki obviously is still there. Hap, you got players who are familiar. The question is can they score runs? Like if you're playing the NL Central, you just got to score a bunch of runs. We're going to talk about this later, but we're going to talk about Kyle Tucker. But in Kyle Tucker in, Cody Bellinger out kind of situation is going to be an interesting one. So that's the Japan series. But the Japan series is only the appetizer for the real start of the season. That's opening day, which starts on Thursday, March 27th. And I bring this question to you. What are some of your favorite opening day traditions of your own that you observed? We'll highlight 3 here. But the one for me is it's every season starts with afternoon baseball. And that is just special. There's no doubt about it. Afternoon baseball is special.
Yeah, afternoon baseball. I mean, obviously, I think you're going to dive into this more, but the Cincinnati tradition of like having a day off for that city, I think is a big thing for me as an opening day. Yeah, it's a holiday since the 1860s, so I think that's a big one to kind of watch. It's like a parade down there. If you
Right, so the Finlay Market Parade, Sparky Anderson put it years ago. It's a holiday. It's a baseball holiday. Ain't no other place in America got that for the Finlay Market Parade. The other tradition that I remember, or the St. Louis Cardinals brings out the Budweiser Clydesdales, which are just a hallmark of that city, connection with the Anheuser-Busch, obviously Busch Stadium. And then the other one that my friend Jimmy will always remind me is that a Pittsburgh Pirates openings, the season doesn't start in Pittsburgh until 4:12 p.m. local time. Obviously noted for the 412 area code. So that's something quite special, and I greatly enjoy that little factoid. The other one that I can think about, like I said, is afternoon baseball in general. And afternoon baseball is very much more a fixture of the summer, but to get it in the spring and on a weekday feels great. Because you're taking off work, you're taking off school. I mean, I swear I remember one time that like certain school districts were like they'll end early just so kids can go home and go to the game. So it's great. And I think the Yankees are officially starting. The team is going to open the series against the Brewers this year. That's like the real marquee first game of the year. So that's going to be great. Like I said, only 2 days away. So we've covered the Tokyo series quickly, as well as opening day. Introduce a concept for podcast. Coming after the break, we explore the year ahead for MLB and again for our podcast. Now, right here, normally, if you're listening or if you're watching, you're going to hear me do an ad read for some company. Right now, we're running ad free. That means we're potentially going to try to insert something here. So right now, this show is brought to you by us, and we'll see how that changes in the future. But we're running ad free, so there's a welcome back after 15 seconds. It's time for Kazuki and I to kind of preview 2025, both for the season and our podcast. So we'll start with major storylines. Number one is Juan Soto signing that humongous contract with the Mets.
760 million, man.
That definitely usurped Otani and everyone else before him, Yamamoto. I mean, yes, they don't have two contracts of that volume like the Dodgers, but Juan Soto just, takes the subway from the Bronx, goes down into Grand Central, and takes the 7 train out towards Flushing and gets off at Mets Willets Point. And he's sticking there, hopefully, for a number of years because he's getting paid a bundle of money. The other big moves that came up to me is Alex Bregman's a Boston Red Sox player now, which sort of displaced Rafi Devers. And Rafi Devers didn't want to hear anything about that. So do we really have a good understanding of who the Red Sox positionally lineup's going to be this year yet?
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to mention him later, but I think Christian Campbell, if I'm not wrong, made the roster, right? So he's probably going to be second base. And in third base will be probably Alex Bregman. Thing about Devers is I think he's still recovering from that shoulder injury from last year. So I think he's more of the DH and Costas at first.
Okay. So we'll see how that goes. And their pitching staff has upgraded a little bit. We'll get to that in a second. The Dodgers loaded up with talent from Japan, and then they added Blake Snell and re-signed, Kike and Tommy Edman and Teo and all those other players. So they're just. I mean,
there's a couple more, right? They signed a reclamation project to Michael Conforto, who I think will go off. You heard it from me first. He's going to go off this year.
Conforto was with the Giants last year?
Yeah. He had good underlining stats, but it didn't show. But I think he's going to really take off for the Dodgers this year, considering I think he batted against lefty too. So I don't think he's a full platoon bat. I think he will hit for both sides and play almost every day.
That's true. That could happen because they kind of have a need to move people around on a regular basis. And Max Muncy has been sort of displaced every once in a while. And by displacing Muncy with Freeman, and you open up DH, and there's all these little pieces that you can kind of shuffle around. And obviously, Betts' status is a little bit uncertain, which is kind of scary. If you haven't read what his situation is, he even admits it. I'm really scared. He's had some GI issues and has lost a considerable amount of weight in spring training because of
he had lost 15 pounds or something, right, before the Tokyo series.
And he's still under medical care under the Dodgers. I don't believe he went to Tokyo, or if he did, he was very heavily monitored. It's kind of scary, and he even might not make it opening day. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, they have lots of players, and we hope Betts gets better. But this is a little bit of a precarious situation. Other big signings: Max Fried from the Braves is now a Yankee, and Garrett Cole is injured. So Max Fried, welcome to being number one starter on our team. Very quickly, we just heard Jordan Montgomery has got Tommy John surgery lined up for him, so that's another big pitcher down for the count. But we also have pitchers coming back: Kershaw, Scherzer, Verlander, and DeGrom. Kershaw, Scherzer, Verlander, DeGrom. Also, the question is how much longer are we actually going to see them play? All have had notable large gaps, injuries, and whatnot. Scherzer's a Blue Jay. Verlander's a Giant. Clayton Kershaw is holding on as a Dodger because I don't think they will ever let him go. And I do. There'll be a Giant. I think there'll be a protest if they let him go. And DeGrom is slated to pitch for the Rangers. And Kershaw's got the 3,000 strikeout milestone to look forward to, but that's pretty much it. It's crazy to think how much of their career has been lost to significant years-long industry, not year-long, but years-long injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think DeGrom will probably have a good year. I mean, I know he's on an innings limit, but I think minus one major injury, I don't think he's injury prone. I mean, I get that he's been injured for the past few years, but I don't think it's fair to label him as injury prone compared to, let's say a Giancarlo Stanton or, those type of players.
That makes sense. Other changes of scenery, one by force and one by choice. We'll talk about the one by force because it was devastating. For those who remember back in October, Hurricane Milton took a warpath right through Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg. And right after Helene took a warpath through just north of that in Florida and whipped its way through Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, Tropicana Field's roof got ripped to shreds. Like, it is a skeleton. And for a city that was trying to fund a new stadium, but also keep the existing stadium until that new stadium is there, financially, those factors are not adding up. So the future of the Rays in Tampa / St. Petersburg is a little more precarious than it was even a year ago, and that was pretty precarious. For now, they're going to play at Steinbrenner Field, so thank you to the New York Yankees for volunteering their spring training field, but playing outdoors in Florida in the summer, even they admit, is going to be a challenge. It's going to be hot. When it rains, it's going to be heavy, and it's going to be humid. There's not much you can get around that. They're playing in the shadow of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium. Like, it is at a smaller stadium. We'll get to talk about smaller stadiums in a second. But this was not by choice. And it's hard to watch for a team that is generally quite good on a small budget to be forced into this difficult scenario. Like, people won't think they're going to play Montreal. They weren't going to play in Montreal. That'd be great for people of Montreal, but not going to happen.
Yeah, can we talk about the condition of playing there over the summer? Was that a roof?
That's going to be
daytime games
so
going to be horrible.
Tough. They are trying to like front load games and then back load games. Like, most games are going to be late. Like, I don't care if the sun sets at 8 o'clock. It's going to be 85 degrees and like 60-70% humidity when you play these games in the summer in Tampa. And we've seen like the Blue Jays have to do it in 2020. Because obviously for the health and safety restrictions of traveling to and from Canada, the Pro Player Stadium when we were children, like that was rough. We've seen football games in the fall at they call it the Swamp in Gainesville for a reason. Obviously, if that's named for the Gators, but it is hot and humid in Jacksonville, in Tampa, in Miami. Like, these places are not great for outdoor sports in the late summer, let alone the summer. So the home record of the Rays is going to be a fun thing. It's going to be a constant watch point for baseball people, because the other factor is we don't know how they're going to play there. It's designed for a year, but I don't think it's going to be. They might not have a home next in 2026 in Tampa Bay either, because the pictures of the Trop are horrific. It was like a spiral, like it's a bubble dome. So if you're familiar with the JMA Wireless Dome, formerly the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, same kind of idea. And it's just a bunch of steel rods now with a bunch of tarp just like swirling in the wind. I don't know. And it probably makes it a whole lot easier for someone to come in there and say, we're going to take your team elsewhere. And they may be forced to.
I mean, I don't think MLB wants them to leave the Tampa Bay market. It is the 11th biggest media market.
It's a huge media market. So we'll see what happens. But let's go to the one that's more groans than anything. Yeah, and that's what's happening we can't call them the Oakland Athletics anymore. They're the Athletics, or the A's. They're like a soccer team without a home, without a city name attached to them. The A's are playing in Sacramento. We knew that for 3 years. We know that. They are sharing with the Sacramento River Cats. We know that. Sacramento River Cats are not their AAA affiliate. They're the Giants AAA affiliate. So that's nice. That field is going to get worked because, the USL team in Sacramento, the Republic FC, also play in that complex. So that whole area is going to get worked. Like, shouts to the groundkeeping crew, because this is going to be a long road ahead for them, because we don't know the future. We kind of know the future in the Vegas ballpark, but has barely been broken ground, not even broken ground. Like, a tax deal has been signed.
There's not even an agreement yet to build in Vegas.
And they just signed Luis Severino. They put a lot of money behind Brett Rooker. Like,
Well, they had to, otherwise they were gonna get Players Association was gonna submit grievance against them, and they wouldn't have gotten the rev share from the MLB, the commissioner's office.
So maybe maybe the A's are going to be competitive this year. We don't know, but we also are very curious what the sight lines are going to be. Like they have no national games as of right now. Like we'll see what happens.
I mean, same question here. The condition of the ballpark. Sacramento is a humid area.
Humid and
like
hot. Sacramento is
Yeah.
hot in the summer.
Yeah, same with Tampa. Like it's gonna be crazy to play there. It's smaller than the Steinbrenner Field.
The ball's gonna move fast. Like it's a soccer field. It is a soccer field too, and not for the faint of heart. That the soccer team, the USL Sacramento Republic FC, draw a big crowd. So you're trying to like Tacoma has done this with the NWSL team when they played there in a baseball stadium. Oh, I have to laugh. Shouts to Oakland Roots Soccer Club. They took over the O.Co Coliseum, the Ring whatever you want to call it, Ring Central Coliseum, whatever you want to call it now, and put 26,000 fans in there, which is more than I think any single game was last year for the A's in Oakland, which is, we get the point of how you feel, Oakland, and we kind of feel the same way. But that field's going to get worked. It's going to get overused, and the ground crew is going to have a tough time because it's going to be so humid. Like there's a reason why the Rangers and the Astros moved indoors. And Vegas has to be indoors. Like you're nuts if you don't put any indoor sitting in Vegas. The Diamondbacks are the opposite. It's hot as hot in there, but it's also dry. Vegas is going to be dry. So right now, kind of like the worst stadiums to play in this year are environmentally are probably Tampa Bay, again, not by their choice, and Sacramento by their choice. So we'll see how successful the teams are because they still play 81. They have to play 81 games at home. You can't not play 81 games at home. So we'll see how that goes. The last question is I'm going to if we could put filters on this right now, we already have our filters. Kazuki's, it's snowing where Kazuki is, and I'm in the garden again. The future of baseball and television is a top 3 topic with the MLB right now. This topic, very curly, I will say with paraphrase legal speak, is off limits to Kazuki and I. Here's why. Both of us, in some form, work for companies that are either current rights holder locally or nationally for MLB games. We don't know anything. We're not going to share anything. We're going to let the news be the news, and we will kind of just state it as fact when it gets reported.
Yeah, but
follow the news as for that one, basically.
I mean, I would say the opting out of the ESPN deal does make it kind of interesting for what baseball can do. Let's put it that way.
Right. That's the biggest news right now is what's going to happen to Sunday Night Baseball in 2026 and the national night Sunday Night Baseball radio and the World Series radio contract are also up too. So it's every ESPN game is up for bid in 2026 and the radio rights that they had are up for bid. So we'll see. The latest
Home Run Derby too.
Right. Home Run Derby. The latest news is every other partner has bid for it or suggested they may put their name behind it. So NBC has announced it. Apple, I think, has gently stated, and then obviously Fox. So we'll see what happens because 2026 is a big year for MLB baseball all around for how we're going to watch it. So again, we'll report it as it comes to light, but that's it. If you do follow us on LinkedIn in August of 2023, before I had my current job, I've spent, months trying to put together a webinar, quote unquote, of how the MLB television landscape works. It's available. You can find it. It's on my LinkedIn page. It's an hour and 45 minutes. It's a lot of heavy topics. It's with Kazuki, myself, our friend Adam Bush, who has spent far more time in the television world than we have, breaking down how this all works. I'm lucky to say that it has held. Again, watch it if you wish, and we'll report the news as it comes.
I would say one more thing, not fully related to this topic of future baseball, but I would say this: if you look at the viewership number for the MLB games in Tokyo this year. Despite it starting at 3 a.m. Pacific, it still had over half a million like viewers, including the local TV market of the Dodgers on
Oh, that's
Spectrum
right. So
and then Chicago Cubs.
yeah.
So it was a huge market still. And people obviously, because people in the States, it's too early for them in the morning. So most of the highest watching peak concurrency happened towards the end of the game because
Right,
it's
because
naturally our morning.
it would have overlapped with morning news in every market because it was
Yeah.
6 a.m. 5 to 6 a.m. Pacific to 8 to 9 on the East Coast. So, but like I said, people were watching even at 6 a.m. So we'll see how that goes. But now to the play on the field. The players and teams that Kazuki and I are looking forward to in 2025. Start the players. I'll start. Number one is rookie of the year, Paul Skeens. We hope to have a podcast in the future with our friend Todd to talk about the whole baseball card thing. We are working on that, and Todd is very busy with other projects, but there may be a podcast in 2025 where we talk about the whole baseball card thing with Paul Skeens. But Paul Skeens was probably the most notable new player in all of baseball last year. We can kind of agree to that fact. Paul Skeens highlighted young pitchers in 2024. He still highlights them in 2025, but there are also other pitchers to watch. So Tom Verducci, broadcaster on Fox, Major League Baseball Network, but also on Sports Illustrated, highlighted 5. Jackson Jobe of the Tigers, Andrew Painter of the Phillies, Bubba Chandler of the Pirates, Caden Dana of the Angels, and Kumar Rocker. Honestly, the first 4 are a little more unknown to me. I saw Kumar pitch at Vanderbilt. My goodness, did that kid throw. And he is built to handle high leverage pitching. Like he is good.
I met him in person in spring training last year. Very big guy.
Like he's is
huge.
Right. He gets the stage he is on. I'm sure the other 4 do. But Kumar Rocker is going to show up in the Rangers rotation, big time leverage, high leverage situation for the bullpen. And that division is up for grabs. Like the Astros, we're talking about the Astros lost some players, and their losses are notable. Bregman, Tucker, we'll talk about that. But yeah, that's a big thing. And the last player I'm going to highlight is Mike Trout. When was the last time we got a full season of Mike Trout? Anthony Rendon is like an afterthought now.
I mean, I think he played his last game as an Angel at this point. So
I think he played his last game as a professional. Like he has been so unfit. But Mike Trout is so good at baseball. And he's been so poorly injured every year, at least last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so we're hoping his move to right field will lessen that injury. And, as Brandon would say, please stay healthy.
Please stay healthy. Thoughts and prayers to your health. But I also think the Angels are equipped to shift him around because they have good young talent. And they'll bring in the right players if they need to. If they will spend the money to facilitate him in the outfield. To you, who are your 5 players that you are looking out for in 2025?
I would say, all of your picks are nice because Jackson Jobe's going to do well. Andrew Painter's been a top prospect for the Phillies. So Bubba Chandler, I think it's going to be big. So I think that's a good list. For me, obviously, I have to mention this guy. He's not a prospect, but he is an unfinished product, as we've seen in the Tokyo series. Roki Sasaki, throws gas over 100 miles an hour, and that devastating splitter. I think Dodgers.
His pitches are great. His arsenal, his collection of pitches are phenomenal. It's a shame he walks so many batters, but you saw every different way he was going to try to get you, every which way.
Yeah, he is nasty. If he could stay healthy, he also notoriously pitched that back-to-back perfect game to no hitters, in Japan. But obviously his question mark is always health. So that's that. Next one's for me is Junior Caminero of the Rays. We saw a little bit of him like during the second half of last season. I think he's going to break out in the infield now that Rays are kind of in that not a rebuild but a retooling stage, and I think he's going to like man third base or second base as Rays would shift him around. But I think his batting profile is just tremendous. Where I think his like BABIP wasn't like that high, and like he doesn't strike out that much, which is big, and he has hard contact as close as like Yordan Alvarez and all those elite hitters in our league today. So that's him. And the next one for me are a couple prospects and rookies. So Dylan Cruz of the Nationals. He hasn't played yet, but he's from the Padre. That blockbuster Juan Soto trade was the Padres. I think he's gonna fill out some time with James Wood, which would be a tremendous duo in the outfield for the Nationals. And in my next one, I think it's been starting to get picked up more, and I'm really interested to see how this team's going to do it. But Christian Campbell and Roman Anthony of the Red Sox, I think those are two highly regarded prospects, both playing infield and outfield. Christian Campbell, probably second base. Roman Anthony, probably left field. I'm interested to see how Red Sox will kind of shift him in and try to make this like team into a playoff contender. And then lastly, he's an interesting one. He's a 35-year-old rookie from Yomiuri Giants. Signed with the Orioles. Tomoyuki Sugano. I think he's one of the best pitchers from Japan to come in, and I think he's pretty underrated. I get he's old, but I think he has really good stuff, and he posted a sub-2 ERA last year in the MPB. So I'm interested to see how Orioles will take care of him, considering how depleted that rotation's been.
And Brandon Hyde can make miracles out of something. He's made miracles out of, he's taken prospects like Grayson Rodriguez and turned them into superstars. And he found a way to resurrect Corbin Burns' career a little bit, which is kind of crazy that Corbin Burns needs a resurrection a little bit, but Corbin Burns couldn't find a home, and then all of a sudden he was in Baltimore, and wow.
Well, he got traded because Milwaukee wasn't going to pay him. So
right, he ended up with Baltimore and was like, okay, I'm going to make you great, and he made him amazing and got a humongous contract from the D-backs. Moving on to that one. So now we'll move on to some teams, and I realize my 4 teams in a division are pretty much very heavily, I'm slanted to the American League. The Houston Astros, how they do it every year, we will never know. But this year, 2 all-stars are gone. 3 kind of, if you count Justin Verlander. Kyle Tucker is a Chicago Cub. Alex Bregman is a Boston Red Sox. And they brought in Christian Walker. Christian Walker was kind of, I don't know how you class him, but he was the part of the Diamondbacks that definitely made that engine run. Like, he was definitely a high volume contributor to that team. Christian Walker, Yordan Alvarez on the same team. I am curious. I'm curious how that will work. I'm curious how they're going to spread the wealth around. And then obviously at the rotation, you took players last year that we had never heard of and made them.
Yeah, Spencer Arrighetti, I think he's going to take a huge step. Hunter Brown as well.
I remember Hunter, you and I were talking about Hunter Brown on the podcast last year right up to the playoffs. And I was like, who is this guy? And then I became, who is this guy? Because he was good. And you said Arrighetti is a new commodity to the league too.
Yeah, Spaghetti-O. Yep. Anyways, that's
Spaghetti-O. Speaking of, Kyle Tucker's on Chicago Cubs. They lost Cody Bellinger, but every team now in the NL Central has big bats, like huge bats. And Kyle Tucker joining that lineup. You're playing the Brewers sent Willie Adames is now a giant. And Christian Yelich, please stay healthy. Along with Jackson Churio and that whole lineup, that's another thing. And they got, obviously, Ellie De La Cruz for the Reds. The Cardinals just find a way with pretty much like, you have Arenado, but other players who have stepped up, but they've been kind of middling, sinking-ish.
They're probably more sinking, and they wanted to trade Arenado, which I don't think it worked out because of the trade clause.
That contract is rough. And then Pittsburgh you got players who, I'm escaping me. The third baseman, not Cruz.
No, that's a Hayes. And then there's O'Neal Cruz in the outfield.
O'Neal Cruz. And then is Brian Reynolds still there? Or Brian Reynolds is still there.
Yeah, he got extended last year.
Yeah, big contract, 5-year contract for $100 million. So they have players too, and they obviously have 2 of the top young pitchers in the league. So we'll see. Because that division is kind of up for grabs a little bit, but the Brewers are still, they find a way.
They're top notch. They're just top notch. Yeah. I mean, they got rid of Devin Williams too. So
Devin Williams is now a Yankee.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more later. But
Yeah, what? And then the Red Sox adding Walker Buehler off an injury, and then Garrett Crochet off a sad story. And the White Sox are going to be bad again.
but their farm is like
Their
actually
farm is
pretty rich.
their farm is a gold mine because they just trade a bunch of players. They did what everyone does in baseball. We're going to trade a really good player or a decently good player and just haul out your farm system. Top 50, top 100 prospects. We're going to just build the Charlotte Knights to kingdom come. And that's what they're doing, basically. The Charlotte Knights is basically an MLB team for like 3 years away. So it's going to be great. So we'll see how that goes. But the Red Sox, you talked about their prospects, but they also had 2 top-notch pitchers of the past several years. So we'll see how that pans out. And then in the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers put us on a ride last year in the fall, right up to the last couple of weeks. Will they make the playoffs? Is my guiding question for them. They are fun to watch. They got great young talent. And then they bring in a bunch of veterans who are impressive. They brought in Maeda last year. And that was up.
That was a bad experiment, unfortunately. He's a bullpen guy. But the starters, I think, I mean, sorry, I know it's your section, but to piggyback, I mean, besides Tarek Skubal, Jackson Joe.
They have the Cy Young winner. Remember that. And they have a lefty Cy Young winner with like an unconventional pitching, and he was amazing.
And that bullpen's back, collection of Vest, Foley, Herder. I think it's still going to be good. I think the one to watch out for, sorry to hijack your section,
keep going.
But yeah, Casey Mize, I think I'm really interested in how he's recovering.
Because he was the 3 last year? Was he 3? Was he 4?
Yeah, he was one of the top prospects. You know how like back into 2020 when we were talking about the farm system, Detroit had all these collection of pitchers, Skubal, Mize, and Manning. And I think so far only Skubal turned out well, but
Mize is he's coming. He's got a chance because I don't think he's definitely going to be a top 3 starter for them for at least for a while. I think
he's just been injury prone. So
right. Again, like a banner of our podcast, please stay healthy. And then the last thing is the NL East is probably the most competitive division I've ever in the last 5 years, because you've had the Mets now have the most richest player in baseball. The Braves got rid of one of their top pitchers, but they'll find a way.
I mean, come on, Grant Holmes, Schwollenbach, who you've never heard of these reliever become a starter.
Yeah, they're gonna find a way. And the Philadelphia Phillies, they added Luzardo. They added Luzardo.
Yeah, they did
Luzardo. Yeah. And the question
rotation's good.
That rotation. When the rotation for the Phillies includes Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola already, and then you slot in Jesus Luzardo on top of that bullpen with who's the guy with the hair? Strom,
Kirkering. They signed Romano from the Blue Jays,
who was a top 10 closer last year. I mean,
2 years ago, actually, he was injured.
2 years ago, sorry. He was the closer when the Blue Jays made all the playoffs, and he was definitely on that team. So yeah, that team. So what's going to happen there? Because obviously the Nationals are in a rebuild for several years.
They're going to be good though. I think they're competitive. They were still competitive last year.
They for those of you listeners who have been with us for years, every year around the end of the season, we always talk about the teams that are going to dash your hopes and dreams. The Nationals do that because when you have to play when the Mets and the Braves and even the Marlins and the Phillies have to play the Nationals 6 times in the last 8 weeks of the season, those are must-win games at that point. And the Nationals are going to make you split the series. Be a bunch of 3-4-3, 8-6 type games, and they're going to wear you down and make you have to pull it out in late against these teams. We see that in every sport: hockey, baseball, basketball, soccer, football. Teams are going to ruin your hopes and dreams when it comes to the playoffs. So we'll see what that happens. to you, you have several teams you're looking forward to in 2025.
I wanted to add one of your team before I go to my list, but
Ooh.
for the Astros, big news is Cam Smith, the guy
That was announced
who
today on March 25th that he has made the roster.
Exactly, from the Kyle Tucker trade. I don't get why the Cubs traded him. I guess they're high on Shaw, but Cam Smith, who played only 32 minor league games and drafted last year 14th round by the Cubs, has made it to the MLB roster. Only played up to Double-A, hit 313, 7 home runs, 24 ribbies, but his spring training has been very solid. 15 games, 342 average, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. Going to play third base and left field. It's going to be a huge gamble for the Astros to, make him in the starting lineup, play third base or left field, either to cover Altuve in left or play ahead of Paredes, just because their defense is a little bit suspect. But I think for me, I think he could be the next Jackson Merrill of this season. So I'm going to pause there before I go to my list.
That's true. I think I have no notes. That's basically the best way to summarize it.
So I'm excited for that. Couple teams I'm excited. I think a couple are probably going to be, you guys will call it overrated. Some of them I think are low key, and I think they'll be competitive. The two 2023 World Series team I think are a must watch for me. First is the Texas Rangers. They didn't have like the splashiest offseason like the other teams that I'm going to mention later, but they acquired Jake Berger, Jock Peterson to shore up that first base platoon. And then obviously they re-signed Nathan Eovaldi. So you have the rotation of DeGrom and Eovaldi as a 1-2 was Rocker and Leiter holding up to second half the rotation. So I'm kind of curious to see if, I think the question mark for the Rangers is, can they stay healthy? I think last year they were really wrecked with injuries. So
they were wrecked in every facet last year by injuries.
Yeah.
Every layer of their team was just at least 20, 30 games lost to these potentially at least all-star level type players.
Yeah, like Seager, obviously. I mean, you kind of expect Seager to be out for 30 games, unfortunately, every year. So
his brother was too, unfortunately, several times.
Yeah, so I think that's a question mark for Texas. My next one's going to be the Diamondbacks. They
loaded up.
Exactly, just because they were one game away from the playoffs until they lost a tiebreaker to the Braves and the Mets. So they're back with his vengeance, and I'm excited to see Corbin Burns obviously lead that rotation with Zach Gallen, and then they brought in Josh Naylor in a trade to replace Christian Walker at first base. So I think the big question mark for me is Corbin Carroll. Can he carry that production from the second half? Because he was mightily struggling in the first half last season. Can he continue that momentum going into year 3 of his contract? And then I think you've heard it from Brandon. Montgomery, their last big offseason last year, is going to have a Tommy John. So they're down one man, but I believe their rotation was already full anyway. So I think
Spot, Kelly,
Gallen, Burns.
They usually run 4. I wonder who 5 is going to be. Good question. Who 5 is going to be? But yeah, they have a great team. So I'm encouraged. I'm curious to see how that goes, because everyone's chasing the Dodgers at this point in the NL West.
Yeah, and it's going to be really tough to face that superstar roster. But my next one are the two New York teams that I'm actually kind of curious to see. Obviously, Yankees, how are they going to recover from Soto, losing Soto, right? So their additions this year, Paul Goldschmidt, Max Fried, Devin Williams, Cody Bellinger, Ryan Yarbrough, who just signed last night. I'm curious to see how they're going to play it. It seems like instead of producing more runs unlike last season, it's relying more on defense and really
their defense was bad.
Pitching.
Their defense was bad going into the postseason. So we talked about that last time on the postseason episodes, and I think they made an upgrade there.
Yeah, I mean, Cody Bellinger at center field, Judge moving back to his natural position, right? I think will cover the outfield. Jazz Chisholm getting to play his natural position at second, and Paul Goldschmidt, he was a Gold Glover, so I mean, he's old, but I think it's still going to be pretty solid defense. So I think it looks like more of a run prevention game from them. So the question is whether they could hit without Giancarlo Stanton, who's likely to be probably out for the season. He has 2 elbows that probably need surgery, and his legs are not working. So I think that's going to be a tough part. And then I think the other X factor is Cody Bellinger. Whether is he going to recapture his 2023 form or at least get closer to his like Dodger days, right?
Right.
I'm not talking about the 2019 MVP Cody Bellinger, but at least closer to that 2017 Rookie of the Year like Cody Bellinger. Make contact, hit gaps, doubles, score knock-in runs, especially if you're hitting behind Aaron Judge. We'll see about that. And then across town, that one's going to be a more hyped up team because we didn't expect them to make the playoff last year, and they did. So they had a Soto, Clay Holmes. They re-signed Sean Manaea, P. Alonso, added in Frankie Montas, AJ Minter. So a lot of like higher bats, but like reclamation projects for the pitching side. That sounds like a David Stern special, what he did in Milwaukee, where he tries to fix pitching. I mean, Clay Holmes is going to be a starter. He was a closer for the Yankees for the past few years, and he's starting. So I'm kind of curious to see that experiment. So, and then lastly, like, can the Mets repeat, what they did last year now with Soto and then go up against the Dodgers, I think is a big part. But I think those two New York teams are big, but my biggest X factor in this National League division, and I feel like people are not looking at them. I think it's the Atlanta Braves. They were not healthy either this whole last season. The only people that carried them were Chris Sale, who somehow revived his health and won the Cy Young, and then Reynaldo Lopez, who was a reliever turned starter. Now they're getting Strider back. Acuna, we're not sure if he's going to be 100%. And then obviously Riley and Ozzy Albies were injured last year. So can they stay healthy? Same as Michael Harris. So it's all of these, long-term contract players. Can they come back from their down year? And then Jerickson Profar, can he keep up? So I'm excited to see how the Braves will do. And then obviously we talked about the rotation: Strider, Sale, Lopez, and then Schrolen back and Holmes in the last two spots. I think that's going to be a really exciting rotation to watch.
Yeah, the NL East is fun. It became a lot of fun very quickly. So we'll see how the NL East goes. All right. So that's our preview of the season, but I think we'll close the show with I'm sorry. We have one big news right now to report. The Seattle Mariners have signed a contract extension with Cal Raleigh for 6 years for $105 million. That was announced, I believe, since we started recording this podcast. Quick thoughts, like, yay, we got a career catcher in the Mariners since Dan Wilson. So hooray.
And ironically, he's the manager now of the Mariners.
Yeah, he's the manager of the Mariners now. So, one catcher to another, we're gonna keep you in house. I mean, Kenji Jojima was Dan Wilson, Kenji Jojima, and then like Miguel Olivo, and it was like a bunch of random collection of catchers.
I mean, hey, don't forget Zunino. Zunino has been there for a while.
Mike Zunino, who couldn't bat over 220. Great hitter, but big power.
I mean, to be fair, I don't want to dump on Big Dumper, no pun intended, but he's only hit 220 last year. Yeah. Has a lot of home run power though, like Zunino.
So we'll see how that goes. But congrats to him. The Mariners got a career catcher again. Like I said, Zunino was the last person they really invested in because they drafted him out of Florida in the top 3 in the picks. So we'll see how that goes. But now let's go back to something we've brought up before. We'll talk about this probably several times throughout the year. 2025, 5th year for Kazuki and I be together. It is the year that we will see the first Asian-born player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. This show's foundation, before I joined it, Kazuki was created. I don't want to steal the word. It was created to like highlight the Asian American like fan connection influence to baseball. Like it's what the image still looks like. I am not the image for this podcast. I am not there. We thought about doing it, and it kind of just faded away for the right reasons. It's Sayonara Baseball. It has a Japanese name in the title. It's about how Asian and Asian American culture has connected you to baseball. It connected Kazuki and I together, for goodness sakes. So I think this year we're gonna try, we hope, to do something a little bit different. And that's kind of share our stories, maybe bring on a few friends to talk about like how the Asian and Asian American players culture has been a part of their baseball experience. So I'll start because I may be the opener for this, but this is your way to close. This is your closing segment. for the show today about what this means to you, because it's your identity. I'm just a friend. The Asian American and Asian American experience for me in baseball started. We talked about this last year. We talked about the Dodgers. It started with Hideo Nomo. I don't think I can really attest to the fact that I've known him before Hideo Nomo. Who is this guy? Why does he pitch the way he does? He looks different. And then you realize how amazing he is. Just how incredible he is. He may do things differently, but he's really good. And then soon after that, 2001, the Mariners signed this guy out of the Nippon Professional Baseball Organization named Ichiro Suzuki. He's going to don number 51. And we're going to slot him in right field.
And that was after Randy left too.
After Randy left, Griffey was gone. Was Griffey gone at that point?
Yeah,
Griffey
he was gone. He was traded.
He was traded. So who is this team going to be? The Mariners won 116 games. Ichiro won the Rookie of the Year. And we're like, what is going on? Who is this guy who takes an extra 7 seconds to get his batting stance right and like stares you down like a bullfighter? And he looks at you dead to red and is like, okay. And then you watch him in the field. And obviously, if you type in Ichiro fielding highlights, number one thing is the laser that like stymies Rick Riz. Like, what is he? How right field to third base on the fly? What is this?
Yeah, coming out of Star Wars.
It's coming out of Star Wars. That was the quote. And it was something out of it was superhuman. That was the introduction in 2000, the new millennium. And then the rest of the league, it just kind of grows. The Mariners have the Nintendo investors. They get Kenji Jojima, Shigetoshi Hasagawa joins the team. Yusei Kikuchi later on. The Yankees, Godzilla, Hideki Matsui. Out of Korea, we have Hisop Choi. We have Aoki. Aoki joins the
Brewers,
league,
yeah.
The Brewers several years later. We have Unisor. I'm gonna butcher it. Yunis Kawasaki, who played the Mariners and the Blue Jays.
Minenori Kawasaki,
yeah. And then we have Hassan Kim out of the KBO, who's currently in the league. We have Yamamoto, Sasaki. We have all these. I'm sorry, we have another Sasaki. Kazuhiro Sasaki was the closer for the Mariners. Like, it just proliferated in the 2000s. All these Asian American, and let's not forget Pacific Islander. You had Shane Victorino, like who was the flying Hawaiian. Everywhere. And baseball was pretty much dominated by American-born players, Latin American-born players, who are by no stretch amazing. Like, we talk about how their influence has captivated baseball for decades, but during our lifetime, it's the Asian and Asian American-born players that have just become so like, and then recently you have Shohei Ohtani. He has defined the league in the last 5 years. There is a now willingness to look abroad, to Korea, to Japan, to find players. And we don't know what's going to happen this year and next year, but for the past 25 years, during our lifetime, it has been defined by Ichiro Suzuki's entrance to Major League Baseball. He was the first really major position player to join. And again, just like Nomo before him, he looked different, he sounded different, and we were kind of a little skeptical what we were get. And then we saw something out of Star Wars. And I'll close my segment about this. When Ichiro Suzuki gets inducted in the Hall of Fame, he made joke about the fact that he only hit like a few home runs in baseball. Go watch batting practice footage of Ichiro. He could have probably hit 50 home runs a season. He just simply said,
heck, 500 too.
He said like, nah, I'm going to break George Sisler's record. And he did. That's the year of Ichiro to me, is like Ichiro set up both of us in a sense of like, this is a real thing. And like I said, I'm a friend to the community and culture of Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI community. It has defined my baseball fandom for 25 years. And I'm so glad that I get to celebrate with you this year because of Ichiro's induction to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, to me, to start off, I think, to me, like, baseball has been always ingrained in the Japanese culture. It's part of our life. We just love it as a culture, and it's really reflected in even the viewership, right? If you look at WBC alone, 90% of the population was watching that final game against the U.S. and that final at bat where Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout, the biggest moment, of a baseball, career, to really watch that. And I think, just being able to kind of enjoy that moment, I think baseball creates that, cultural zeitgeist, I would say, that's just, excites us and really connects us, not only as fans, but, across the community, and I think what Dodgers are doing are pretty interesting, and how they're trying to dominate basically the Japanese market and really connect it. And I think Major League Baseball itself is going, like you mentioned, global. It's not just a domestic sport anymore. It's a worldwide sport. And how can we, kind of like spread the culture of baseball, right? And kind of become more interested in that. I think, to me, that's the year that Ichiro is like the moment where we were introduced to like talent, not just in the US and Latin America, but across like Asia and the world. And then kind of show that there are a lot of great players out there. And now you can see that since the WBC in 23, because of Otani's like big presence, like you got to see teams that you wouldn't expect, like Czech Republic, who knew they played baseball. They had a bunch of like
the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
I got to jump in. The Little League World Series has shown us that Japan is amazing at baseball for decades.
Yeah. And then obviously the Koshien, right? The high school baseball. That is like college, like football. It's like March Madness of the Japan like competition out there. Like, it's just so competitive and crazy. And we did explore that in the very first episode. And I think we highlighted that in the first episode of this podcast, but it's just such a, intense culture right there. And I think baseball, which was introduced in America, right, kind of show like there's like competitive ways to be competitive, not by fighting, because baseball was introduced to them right before World War II by, Babe Ruth, right? So it kind of showed like a culture of where you could be competitive, but you don't have to go to war with like other countries.
Like you said, baseball was like, it was America's pastime. And their American history is tied to baseball. There is a certain thing, like you said, in the last 20 to 25 years, the global nature of baseball has expanded beyond the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern Hemisphere. You're having teams all across the world, from Little League World Series to, like you said, high school baseball. It is so ingrained in Asian culture. And then for that to become part of American culture. And we'll talk about this throughout the year, hopefully. And we'll leave you with this. I think the moment that you and I reflect on together as like the seminal moment in specifically Japanese baseball culture in America, is the first time Ichiro played the Yankees when Matsui was on the Yankees. Because every time they were at bat, you could barely hear the bat. You would hear camera flashes. And it wasn't like a few. It was hundreds. It was must-watch sports for the entire nation of Japan to watch these two players go against each other. They weren't pitcher and batter. It was the all-star left fielder and the all-star right fielder. And when they played in New York, I was lucky enough to see it at least once. It was marvelous. It was incredible. And the fact that that is not just a one-off every year now, it's almost every team has a connection to it, is why 2025 is kind of like the celebration of that. Because you broke through. One of them is getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I'm going to pretty much go with this fact he's not going to be the first. And he's not going to be the last. I'm sorry. He's going to be the first. He will not be the last. There is no doubt at least one more player for sure. Shohei Ohtani is probably that, but there's got to be several others who have a shot at being other Asian and Asian American born players to join him in the Baseball Hall of Fame after 2025. So we hope you all enjoy 2025 with us, because we're excited to hopefully share some stories with from ourselves and our friends about how, like I said, the name Sayonara Baseball is 2025 for us. It is ingrained in what will happen in the sport this year. And we'll close our show as we all do. Thank you for joining us to start a new season of Sayonara Baseball. We'll try to be here as often as we can. We're going to shout out the end of the show. Remember, we're on YouTube now. We're going to try to bring back the audio podcast. I'm going to try to remember to record my audio on a regular basis, but we're going to make that happen, hopefully. We may have some fun sponsors come along the way, but we're going to remember to follow us on, you can like and subscribe on LinkedIn, remember your favorite podcast platform when we get back those back and running. Our shout outs, still the same. We got Cowboy Bob. We got Margaret Shelton returning to the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament, the matriarch of regular Virginia. And then this is my thing. Kazuki is lucky enough to play along with it. I love dogs, and I love how there's baseball doggos. So we have Boone, Winnie, Bandit, Gatsby, Jake, all the fluffy companions. I was just at the park the other day. There was a golden doodle sitting right behind home plate watching that game like it was who's going to get the ball. And it was amazing. It's the reason why baseball is so joyful and wonderful, and why we're so excited to share it with you. And we hope to see you again in 2025 at Sayonara Baseball.